Okay, and we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the RC3 podcast. I am your host, Raleigh Castillo, and thank you for tuning in. As some of y'all may have heard, there was a special election last night over in Congressional District 34. San Benito native Republican Mayra Flores blasted through Harlingen native Democrat Dan Sanchez 14,780 votes to 12,560. That's 51% to about 43%. Mayra Flores became the first Mexican born candidate to win a seat in Congress. She's also flipped the traditionally Democratic congressional seat over to Republican, which has been safely Democrat for over a decade. Former holder of the congressional seat, Democrat Filemon Vela, resigned in March, leaving the seat vacated and open for the special election that took place yesterday. Mayra says, quote, "For over 100 years, we have been taken for granted. I will show you what real representation looks like. I will represent all people." On Dan's part, he says, quote, "Based on the results, we came up short tonight, despite being outspent by millions of dollars from out of state interest and the entire Republican machine. Too many factors were against us, including little to no support from the National Democrat Party and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee." In studio with me here to discuss is Johnny Hernandez and Mayra Gutierrez, two political analysts that I'm excited to speak to. What's happening, guys?
Hi there.
Hi, Raleigh. How are you? Excited to
I'm
be
doing
here.
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to have you guys. Um, do you see y'all? So when y'all heard the news yesterday that Mayra had won, what was the first thing that came to mind when you saw kind of how big she won by, Johnny?
Well, look, I think that Republicans could see this a mile coming, and many of us are happy for her. We think that she worked really hard, and that the national Republicans, they really did do their part in this particular election. So it didn't really surprise me all that much. I know that the numbers seem very skewed, like she won by a landslide, but I don't see it that way. There was another Democrat and another Republican in the race, so if you add the numbers together, it's a little bit closer. Not that it made a difference, but the numbers are closer when you add the Democrats and Republicans together.
Interesting. Mayra?
It wasn't a surprise. I did expect her to win. This was it was a special election. The Republicans poured in millions of dollars, I believe, or hundreds of thousands. It was a lot of money that they poured into it for being a special election. The Democrats kind of stood back and waited for it to happen. I don't think they supported Dan Sanchez the way they do other Democrats. I don't know if it was because it was pro-life or because they're just waiting till November and waited for her to outspend. That way, supposedly they run out of money. But it wasn't unexpected. It was something that I expected to happen. I did see her winning.
So you anticipated her beating out Dan Sanchez.
Yes, I did.
What do y'all feel? I mean, I really didn't even know, and that's because I'm in the political scene. Like I didn't even really know who Dan Sanchez was up until about a month ago. And Myra, you touched on something that was interesting, is that the DNC really didn't invest in this race. I think the numbers that I had last seen was Myra outspent Dan, what, 20 to 1?
For being a Democrat that's not very well known of, Don Sanchez, like you said, I mean, I had heard that he was well liked, but he wasn't somebody that's been in the political world as much as Myra has, because Myra has a very active social media. She outspended him way too much for being, I don't want to call Dan a nobody, but somebody that is new into the political, world. I mean, for somebody that just came in, that was too much money to put into the special election. So it took that much money to beat, Dan Sanchez.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Myra completely on this one. So if you look at the numbers, just the numbers alone, I know that there's many reports saying that there's $3 million that was dumped into this race. I think that was in total since the beginning of Mayra's campaign, which she started a lot earlier than Dan, because Dan came in just for the special election here.
Right.
So between the time that the special election actually started and the special election, I mean the campaigning for the special election and the special election,
Right.
$1 million was spent on behalf of Mayra, and only 100,000. So that's 10-to-1 ratio there.
Mhm.
So look, if you can't win with a 10-to-1 ratio, then the Republicans just don't have any hope. So with that kind of difference in spending, to me, it was going to be a clear win. And not
It's
only
just,
that, she had boots on the ground like crazy, and I don't think that the Democrats did that at all.
that's one of the things that I was going to say, Johnny. She's been campaigning for a while. So her name has been on people's mind for whenever she decided to run for the regular general election in November. So she has been out there in front of people. On top of that, at millions into her campaign. It was a no-brainer. She was going to win. Don Sanchez came in, newcomer, very little money, did not have the support of the Democrat Party, because
And
even on
very
his tweet,
and
he
very
said
very
it.
very uncharismatic the guy was too.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the two, you just put them side to side. You're
Exactly.
gonna
Right.
you're gonna go towards Mayra because she just seems more charismatic and approachable. I don't know Dan. I'm sure he's a fantastic man. Anybody that runs for an office, I really give them a lot of credit. So I'm just surprised that the Democrats just kind of you know they didn't do
Laid,
anything. So
laid over and died on this one. But I
yeah,
mean,
they just rolled
well,
over.
well,
And
the
we go
word
back
out
to
of word out
Hillary
of the
politics
DNC was
also.
that they're willing, that they're waiting they're holding their ammo till November.
Yeah, but this goes beyond holding your ammo. I mean, this is literally a symbol for the entire Republican Party and the whole United States. This is not just, yeah, it's a special election, but it's not just that. It's symbolic. You're taking over a district that's been blue for 150 years. They saw it, they acted on it, and they won it. And Myra was the perfect candidate to go out there and do it. She had like Myra here is saying she had the perfect social media platform
Hmm.
to begin a campaign. They saw that she was going to go out there and work, and she did. And they had many other groups backing her up. I mean, you had a lot of just non-political groups coming out and block walking for her. So it was a team effort for sure. But the Republicans definitely outspent the Democrats. The Democrats did not even put up a fight.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you go back into I mean, the Republican Party outspended the Democrats in a special election, but did not win by a big margin.
No,
An unknown candidate that just started. That says
right.
a lot too. And let's not forget that in November, the redistricting is going to take into effect. This was,
Yep.
the
And that's going to
redistricting
favor the
had
Democrats even
nothing to
more.
do with this.
Right.
It's
And the
going to be different.
redistricting is going to favor the Democrats even more. And so in November you got a known quantity in Vicente Gonzalez, and you got Myra, who's now been, her national star's been elevated. And so how do you see November going? Um because I really don't see the Democratic Party energized. I mean, not even a little bit, to be honest with you. Um and I see the Republicans very energized. Um, I mean, take out your crystal balls and let's go forward to November. How do you see that playing out?
What do you think, Myra?
Well, it's gonna be a hard one because, like you're saying, her star has been elevated. So the Republicans are very energized right now. We have a president that has an all-time low approval rating. I think he's been described as the worst president in modern history. So
Yeah,
that gives, fuel to the people to get somebody from a different party, to get a Republican in office, to try to change all the things that this administration is doing. So that is gonna is going to elevate her into having a chance into beating somebody that's well known, like you say, Vicente Gonzalez. But the area that is good, that has become redistricted, has just become bluer. So are the Democrats going to come back with a vengeance because, we took their seat, or the Republicans took their seat, and say, you took it for that amount of time, we're going to take it back? So I believe that they are angry. They are upset that the DNC didn't act upon it, that local parties, local Democrats are going to become more active in trying to take that seat back.
Yeah, I think you're right, Myra. But there's a lot to that question. I mean, if you just look at the numbers alone, the redistricting is heavily favored for the Democrats in this district, and I know because I was kind of indirectly part of that whenever I was helping Monica redistrict, and so right now the way it looks, if you just took the numbers. If you look at the numbers, you take the percentages of the special election, you knock out all those small counties where Mayra Flores won by a landslide. You take those counties out because that's how the redistricting is going to be. And you just take the Cameron County and you take Hidalgo County, the Democrats win. You take those percentages, the Democrats win. Now, people are saying Mayra flipped Cameron County. Yes, she got more votes than Dan Sanchez, but again, if you look at the Democrat votes, you add both of the Democrats and you add both of the Republicans, Cameron County's still blue. You go to the Hidalgo numbers, the Hidalgo is 10% higher for the Democrats. So if those are the two counties that this District 34 is just going to concentrate on, then the numbers alone don't show that Mayra can beat him. And if they spent 10-1, they're going to have to continue to spend 10-1 to just get to those numbers again.
And let's not forget that right now.
My concern is, just real quick, my concern is that this is, I mean, you were pitting an energized Republican Party against a dead Democrat Party in this particular race. In November, it's going to be different. Everybody's coming out to vote. And so, I mean, I don't know. I don't think her chances are very good for November. But for purposes of full disclosure, I'm friends with Mayra. We both graduated in 2004 from San Benito High School. So I know her as a person.
You're so young, 2004.
I know her as a person. She's a fantastic person, sweet person. Joe Guerrero here, and I want to take a moment to shout out to the viewers. Raquel Gonzalez thinks there's going to be a red wave happening in November. I think most people agree with you.
I want to say something to that. Yes, we've won a district here. The district was the old district. It's going to be a new district. Okay. Truly, there is a trend for Republicans in Cameron and Hidalgo County, but the numbers still aren't there. Okay. The red wave really is trickling down from the northern counties down to our counties. So the way these districts are set up, the northern counties are the counties that are flipping the blue counties. The blue counties are still blue. I don't see a red wave in Hidalgo County. There's not going to be one Republican win in a county seat. I just don't see it.
The Republicans are getting saved by the northern counties. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work to be done in Hidalgo County and Cameron County to turn it more conservative. Hey, Nadia, he's doing good. He's upstairs, my little schnauzer.
Corey Lopez says, loving this discussion. Joe Guerrero asked a very, very important question. Dan Sanchez came in last minute. It was difficult for him to win. Good guy. Given time, he may have won. Mayra fought for the position. She earned it. Do you believe she is qualified? Now, this is the very, very, very important. Now we're getting to the meat of the issue. Like I mentioned before, I think Mayra is a fantastic person, and she, like Joe says, she earned the position. She worked hard for it. She put herself in front of the camera. And she busted her ass. I know that firsthand. And, congratulations to Myra. But as far as qualification goes, I believe she is severely underqualified
Oh,
for the
I agree. I agree,
for the
Raleigh.
for the position.
I know Myra too. We started volunteering at the GOP around the same time, about 3 years ago. Of course, she had a better title than me. I was just a grunt answering phones and going and doing things. But um, so when you look at all of our candidates in the Republican Party, they're very deficient. I mean,
Right.
it's not even funny, really. If you look at our candidates, none of them come with a legal background, knowing how to even make a law. Um, Basically, they just have the heart and soul of what the Republican Party is about. They're gonna talk the talk, but if you just look at qualifications alone, I believe Dan Sanchez. I think he was a lawyer, and
Right.
I'm sure he had other titles as well. So you kind of put that up to, and I know that Myra, she's a fantastic person, like you said, but
Right.
does she really have any legal backing or background or any kind of policy making positions in her previous positions? And the answer is, I think, no. And so that's really something that is really a tough thing for the Republicans, a hurdle that they need to get over. Vicente Gonzalez is barely highly qualified, right? He's been a congressman for, I think, three, going on his fourth term.
Correct.
So he knows the ins and outs. He's able to get money to the valley. He's able to perform the duties that he needs to do. Mind you, he's voting for policies that we don't care for. But whenever it comes down, when it boils down to who can provide the necessary funding and things like that, he already has his inroads. So why would you not want a congressman that can be able to bring funding down to your local cities and that sort of thing? So yes, I love Myra. I think Myra is got a big heart and soul,
Mhm.
but the qualifications it is an issue.
And the reason why I mean, at least I speak for myself. The reason why it's an issue is because if you're getting your talking points from Washington,
Right, that's
um,
all it is.
right, because you're not well versed enough in policy to know what you believe, or to know what,
Right.
or to have an independent streak about you because you know the issues. Well, then you're just another vote for the establishment.
Mhm.
And you can run as an anti-establishment candidate all you want, but when the money funding your campaign is coming from the establishment, well, that money is coming with strings attached.
You
Yeah.
become a
Well,
It's
mouthpiece for
no,
them.
that's true. I mean, all the candidates in all the Republican candidates, they've already all been bought
They're
out by the
corrupted,
establishment. All of them.
right? And one of the things that I've seen since Trump took office is that there's this new wave of candidates that kind of came in on Trump's coattails, right? That try to sound very Trumpian and talk the America first, and they're the same language, but then they sound very populist, but deep down inside, they're just the same old establishment candidates. But they know that the grift works. They know that
They
the talking points work,
they
and
know
and I
they
saw
know.
that, with Monica de la Cruz, and I saw that with Myra, and to me, it's disappointing. In a candidate, I require more than just guns, babies, Jesus. More faith and family. Like that's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the George W. Bush, line. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's as Republican as
Right. Now,
anything that's been
I
put out.
haven't heard any of our candidates in the RGB. I have not heard not one of them talk about how. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And it's just
Exactly right.
not there. They just don't have it.
They're parroting what the establishment is telling them. How are you going to get the money? How are you going to get the funding? So right now, they're saying whatever they can to get that money into their bank, into for the. I'm sure campaigning is very very expensive. I mean, I did it locally and it was it was expensive. I could just imagine how it is for Congress.
Nationally,
But
right?
but it has to be more than that. There has to be a how. You need to know the office that you're running for. After my campaign, somebody called me and told me, well, maybe the next time you should run for county judge. I was like, I'm not qualified to run for county judge. I go, I want to run for a local office to learn what to do and how to do it. And, I know how to, what the city has, what it needs from me.
Right.
But you don't run for an office just to fill the space. And that is what I see the local Republican Party do. They're filling spots with unqualified people just to
Right.
have the name, because the more candidates they put out, the more funding they get, the more money they get into their bank. So, and they're
and
not
and they're
doing
getting
it
and
for
they're getting the
favor.
backing from the establishment just as a sure thing. You know,
Hmm.
who among these candidates down here is going to challenge Kevin McCarthy?
No.
Who among these candidates
Nobody.
down here is gonna challenge what you would call the establishment Republican Party? It's not going to happen. They
It's
don't.
not.
No, definitely not. There's not one of them. Not from the three districts that are here in the RGB. Not one of the candidates. Cassie worked for Ted Cruz. Monica's been endorsed by all the establishment candidates or
Right.
people that are already in office. Myra's the same way. As a matter of fact, I recognize in her speech the other day that she has the same political advisor now that Monica does, and that's how Monica got all her endorsements. So that they're just sharing candidates now amongst the
Hmm.
established um, uh, consultants there in Washington. So it's a really I don't like to see it because the grassroots has kind of been thrown to the side, and now everybody is just all the candidates are just focused on the establishment, you
Hmm.
know, political establishment that's going to fund them. So, and you know what? Some people might say, well, that's smart to do, but you lose your voice. You lose the voice of your district when that happens.
You lose the voice of your people because you're no longer representing the people. You're representing the establishment, because by getting this this endorsement, this money, you now have to vote in that favor. The same thing when you get money from big donors like Alonso Cantu. You can't say no to whatever's going to work on his favor. You have to vote on what he says, because he put a price on you already.
Right.
He already donated to you.
Just as political strategy, I'm curious to see what you guys think. How how well do you think that strategy, that slogan fares here in South Texas? The family, country, and God message.
It's faith, family, and freedom, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a great slogan actually, and those are things that I do agree with. But you got to talk. You got not only talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And there's some candidates that just don't do it. So, and the thing is that um, I really truly do believe, and deep down in my heart, I believe that a lot of these Catholics are Republicans. They just don't know it, and I think that there will be people waking up and saying we are conservative. We probably should be voting Republican because that's the only conservative party there is. And so it's a good slogan. I just I hope, and I think Myra's so far she's been the best candidate to be that persona for that slogan. So I do hope that she continues with it.
There has to be more than the slogan, because when you're talking about freedom, you're talking about our constitutional rights, and you're talking about the people that you're going to represent. When you become a congresswoman or a congressperson or whatever, I help congress candidates from, I don't help anybody here in the area, but I talk to people outside of Texas, because they're not only going to affect their area, like Laura Loomer in Florida. She's still going to represent me. So if you can't represent those political prisoners that are there, that have been stuck in that prison, without the due process, how can you represent freedom when you're not doing it? You're not invocating it. You don't even want to talk about the subject of J6. So to me, it's like, you lost me when you are not even willing to talk about the freedom of people that are being held.
Well, I mean, as
There's
as
more to it.
as a political strategy, and you and I have talked about this before, and this is
Mhm.
one of our biggest disagreements. I think the framing of that the real assault happening on January 6th was that the people who infiltrated the Capitol are the victims, and it's not what they did that you're concerned about. I think that's a huge disservice to me to just to the Constitution. When you want to talk about the Constitution, just the framing alone, you lose me with the framing on that.
But there's due process. I mean, those people, my friends, they're being held. A lot of them have been there since 2020. One of them was denied his cancer treatment for 8 months. That that goes beyond, the humanitarian issue. There's people that are getting transgender surgeries as prisoners, and he couldn't get his cancer treatment until a federal judge came in and said, you know what, you need to release him so he can get his treatment, which is now he's in very, very bad condition because he was being denied the treatment that he needed. So this is not the way we're supposed to, hold somebody that does something, that is illegal or whatever. But this has gone beyond what it was. They're trying to make an example of this political prisoners. They have now become political prisoners.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with Myra on this particular part of it. Is that you're supposed to have due process in this country, and regardless of what they've done, everybody may have done something in their life that they've gotten a ticket for or gotten whatever. You have to have due process. Yes, maybe that in your eyes, them storming the Capitol is wrong, and it is in a lot of people's eyes. But
well, I mean,
at least
I think
process them.
right. We don't disagree on the fact that they do deserve due process. What I'm trying to wrap my I guess what I'm trying to wrap my mind around is the framing here that the real tragedy, like I mentioned earlier, the real tragedy to come out of January 6th is these poor guys who are sitting in jail. Um, we've known that we've had a problem with our prison system for a very, very long time. This is hardly the first time anything like this happens, and again, there's out of all of the things that happened on January 6th, for this to be the concern is it seems to me very, very disingenuous and a talking point. I mean, to be honest, when we talk about January 6th, there's a whole lot of things that come to mind that are more important than the Proud Boys being in prison, and
Not only probably.
some advice for anybody else who's planning a coup next time. Maybe you shouldn't carry a camera crew around. That's probably one of the dumbest things that uh that you can do.
But it wasn't only Proud Boys. There was a lot of people from different aspects, different, just I could have been one of them.
Right. And
Yes.
since we're on this topic, one of the things that turned me off about Mayra Flores when she came in here and we talked is this, holding on to the fact that she just can't wrap her mind around the fact that Donald Trump lost the election, right? Or that the election was stolen, and when I asked her who's president, she had a hard time even telling me that Biden was president. Now, that to me, when we're talking about going to Congress, that to me is a disqualifier right away. Because if you can't even take into account evidence that's right before you, and you're taking it on faith because your favorite leader is telling you that the election was stolen based on nothing, then what confidence? Well, you don't give me any confidence that you're operating on all cylinders, so to speak, when you're going to pass legislation or when you're just discussing policy or any of those things.
Well, I mean, to me, the election was stolen. There was a lot of things that happened in 2020, the election,
But
that
there was a lot of things that happened in 2016 too. Like when we're talking about the mass kind of voter fraud that has to happen to overturn an election, it just wasn't there, Myra. It just wasn't
I
there.
Well, there's
believe.
a lot of people that say there was. I mean, look, I honestly, I can't really give you my opinion on this quite yet because I did watch the 2000 Mules, and I do think that there was a lot of questionable actions, and they do that stuff down here as well. They had all these people doing it across the country where they were doing these mail-in ballots. You know, they were
Did you see?
ballot
Did you see?
harvesting. They're ballot harvesting. So there is some validity to people talking about, hey, this election was stolen. Now, it's been 2 years, people. Let's get on with it. There's no way. There's no way of us undoing this anymore. So you know what? It's a losing subject now for the Republicans to continue to act like this. And
Well,
I hate to say
it's a
it
losing.
because I'm one of them to say, hey, there was a lot of fraud, in my opinion. And
Right,
so
it's a losing subject
it is.
because the evidence isn't on your side. That's why it's a
Well,
losing subject.
have you
Because
watched the 2000 Mules? I
yes,
mean,
I
if
have.
it's
Yes,
happening in that area, it was happening down here, it was happening everywhere around
right.
the country.
I'm glad you mentioned 2,000 mules because even the Attorney General Bill Barr was asked about 2,000 mules, and he reacted to that question like any reasonable person should react. He laughed at it, and then he went line by line discussing exactly the claims that were made by Dinesh D'Souza. And then he just batted them out of. He just debunked each one. Now this isn't some liberal on CNN. This is the Attorney General under Donald Trump that Trump himself chose. We're talking about Bill Barr, who up until the end was with Trump all the way until, and he's the only one of the only ones that had the fucking balls to stand in front of Trump and tell him everything that you are saying, sir, is bullshit. You know,
I
you have so many lawyers in your midst telling you that none of this stuff is real, and you're choosing to listen to Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, who testified in court. You know what her defense? Sidney Powell was the one who was making
mhm.
these claims. Her claim in court was no reasonable person could believe the claims that we were making, calling all of the Trump supporters who still believe this stuff stupid in plain English. This is in court. Now, again, like I say, there was a recount done in Arizona by the Republican Party. That recount showed that Biden won by even more votes than originally had thought. There was recounts in
Was
Georgia. There was 60 plus court cases that
I,
went through these individual claims one by one. Judges, both chosen by Trump and by conservatives, that
okay,
said
so
there
all
is
that is,
no standing here.
yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. Okay,
See,
but let's not forget about
it's a losing issue.
the illegal procedures that many of these Democrat states put into effect for the mail-in ballots. They went around their legislative branch and just decided to allow all these mail-in ballots to go in. So that right there that's a red flag also. So the easiest way for people to cheat is through mail-in ballots. Everybody knows that. So you're right. As far as all the evidence and everything else, it shows that Trump lost, but it almost doesn't have the smell test. And people that love Trump, they're going to continue to back up his claims, especially whenever he's still controlling the Republican Party. So
Right. Yeah, you see, no, and it's fine. Like this is a free country. People can believe what they want, but as long as they say, "Look, we believe this because we believe Trump," and not because they're 2,000 mules or Dinesh D'Souza or any harebrained kind of nonsense. Because again, the
I
evidence
haven't
is
watched the movie.
just not
I
there.
still need to see that 2000 Mules. But I do believe that there was election fraud, like there's election fraud in every election in my point of view.
No,
But
there is election
there
fraud
is,
in every election.
there is. And I think that we need to fix the problems that there is within our elections. And these mail-in ballots, they create a problem. And they created a huge problem in 2020, especially when with the whole COVID situation, that there was, people were doing a lot of the mail-in ballots. So I think that there is something that we need to fix, and that there
All
is
right.
problems.
Well, we're definitely not gonna get anywhere
no,
on this
that's a
subject.
losing conversation for everyone.
Um, Well, not for me, it's not. Um, Johnny, I wanted to talk to you because, like I told you before we went live, I listened to the podcast that you had with Mayra, and I was I was hooked on it because of your insight. Because you were married to Monica de la Cruz, and you were with her while she ran her first campaign in 2020. Correct.
Yes,
If
that's
I'm
correct.
wrong about something here, just let me know.
No, no, that's correct. As a matter of fact, back whenever we decided to run for an office, she came to me and she wanted to do something other than her insurance sales. And I said, yeah, let's do something. And she said, well, I want to run for political office. We had been getting involved with the GOP a little bit, and um, she said she wanted to run for something local, and I told her, no, you can never run for anything local. Like, you'll get stomped here. It's not even worth it. And so I said, you should run for District 15. And the reason why I told her that she can run for District 15 is because she can make the most money doing that. Honestly, she's a salesperson, and I thought that she would be perfect to try to get the support and the money with a bigger title, so to speak, a better political position. Yeah, so I was definitely there at the beginning. I was the one who told her to run for District 15, and she did a fantastic job. I mean, honestly, she worked harder than anybody else. She How can I say this? She immersed herself into it,
Right.
and so it was a good battle. But I could tell you that things change. Unfortunately, we're not together, and there's a lot to be said for that.
Like,
Well, I mean, there's just so many things that we can talk about as far as the political
let's
side,
talk
the
about character.
personal side. There's
Let's
just
talk
a
about
lot.
character. Let's start there.
Well, look, character is a big deal, and whenever I first met her, I there was many things that I loved about her. I mean, her ambition. She was very organized. I knew that big things could be done. We started a business. We bought properties. We did all kinds of things. I mean, in the time that we were married, we did a lot together, and that's a lot to be said about her work ethic. And but there's a lot. There are some character flaws, and obviously, I found the worst of them. And unfortunately, I know all of us have character flaws, but there was just some that were just things that I couldn't overlook any longer. And so, I'm the one who filed for divorce. I'm the one who said that either you change or we're done, and that was it. She didn't want to change her ways, and it just says a lot to a character of a person who doesn't want to work on their marriage.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You also mentioned that before her campaign, that the whole conversation about the Second Amendment, that
Yes.
she had never picked up a gun.
Well, let's go back to that. Really, politically speaking, she's a hard Democrat. If you look at her voting record, if you literally look at her voting record, she's voted in every Democrat primary, and here she is wanting to run for a congressional seat as a Republican,
And
so
not just running as a Republican, but running as a
a hard right Republican.
hard right
Yeah,
Republican. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So that goes to show that she was capable of turning into whatever you needed her to be.
She's
And
moldable.
so that does say a lot about her character also. But as far as the Second Amendment, when I met her, she never picked up a gun in her life. I mean, and that was the first thing that she wanted to do, was she wanted to go take pictures with AR whatever 14, 15s and shotguns and pistols, and she wanted to go have a photo shoot with Dan Crenshaw shooting machine guns and all that kind of stuff. And that goes to show that she's a natural at pandering for the base.
All
She's
right.
a natural at it. She's a salesperson, and she's good at what she does.
But that also makes for good politics.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
And when I met her, I thought she was going to be a politician. I really did. I knew that she was just an insurance salesperson, and she did very well at that. But I knew that that there was bigger things that she could do, and so whenever she said she wanted to run for a political office, I said, well, you know what? I'm a good husband. I'll help you out. We'll do whatever it takes. And yeah, I mean, in the end, I asked her to slow down and work on the marriage, but it didn't work. She just didn't care anymore. So
it was all about ambition.
Yeah, her campaign overtook really our whole life. So I just couldn't deal with that anymore. So and there's other bigger factors involved as well, but I don't want to get into those.
There was a moment where in that 2020 campaign season where y'all came into my old podcast, Hell's Tavern.
Yeah.
And she didn't stick around for too long.
She never does.
Yeah, which I tentatively agreed to, because I hate short discussions because you can never get into the meat and into the policy, because
it's hard to find policy or character whenever you're only there for 5 or 10 minutes.
Exactly. And so, but we did it anyway. And in that short amount of time that I did have her across from me, I was able to pick up on a lot. And again, I'm gonna tell you what my first impressions were. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're not, but you can check me if I'm wrong. The first thing I noticed is that she really didn't know very much about policy. She didn't really.
Yeah, I think you're right. In the first campaign, she was, I mean, honestly, just clueless on policy. She knew that she didn't like what the Democrats were doing and saying about our President Trump, and she didn't like a lot of the media, the way they were talking about our president, going after him, impeaching him, and that's what really fired her up, right? And
I want to ask you something. I don't mean to cut you off, but was that whole Trump fandom, was that real, or was that also part of
I mean, look, I love Trump. She loved Trump.
Okay.
She was honestly, we're Trumpsters, right? I was always going to vote Republican regardless, but whenever we were looking at the candidates for the Republican primary back in 2015, 2016, I told her Trump's going to be my guy. Like, he's telling it how it is. He's shutting down Ted Cruz. He's the guy. And she caught on to it. And she said, you know what? I'm a Trumpster now too. And she loved him. And then so the point where she decided to run and she really decided that she wanted to get involved in politics is whenever Trump came down to McAllen, and there was hundreds of people there with holding Trump flags, waving American flags. And in the news that night, it had a little group of Democrats protesting, and that's what the story was about. Not about all the patriots that were there, right? So that was the day that she absolutely said, I have to get involved. I want to get involved. And I said, let's go for it. Let's get involved. And so to answer your question is yes, Trump was always our guy. We've always loved his policies. Well, I tell people this though, disclaimer, I would never let him be my moral guide. Okay. But if you want good policies and you want somebody that's going to fight for for what's right for America, then he's the guy. And I don't think that Ron DeSantis has come close to being something like that. He's really taken over Florida and everything else. But yeah, Trump was our guy. He was really how we got started. And she's one of them. She's one of those candidates that, is just going to parrot whatever Trump says. So, you spoke about that earlier, about how, about how there's these candidates that they're going to say all the right things, but are they, really about it? And I think that's really one of your questions. Like the meat behind this question is that, is she really about everything that she's claiming to be and
Right.
campaigning about? And honestly, she built that persona. And so even now, she's about family. Even though she destroyed a marriage, she's destroyed our marriage. She's going to post on Facebook that she's having just a fantastic time with her kids,
Right.
and that's her prerogative. She can do all that. But in reality, is anybody going to check her that she destroyed a marriage and she did other emotional harm as well? So, those are things that go directly to the question of her character. And is she about really faith, family, and freedom? Well, you know what? You can see, actions speak louder than words. I hope that the Republican Party actually starts opening their eyes to her actions, even though she's putting up a good front and she's getting all the support from the establishment and getting funding and everything else. Because, people follow money, right? As soon as trust me, people did not follow her in 2020. As a matter of fact, our own GOP chair, Adrian, she's a good person in general, but she did not want Monica to even run for Congress. She was supporting another candidate, and nobody in the GOP supported her.
What's the reason for that? I'm curious.
Well, she was an outsider. She didn't have any qualifications. She didn't. She just was a nobody, really, and she just came in and said, "I want to run for this big position."
Right.
And so, there was a lot of just people saying, "Is she really qualified?" And go back to one of your older questions about, the candidates being qualified. She really isn't qualified. So she's qualified to earn money, she's a raw person, and she
Right.
does the things that she does very well. But the two Democrats that were in the runoff this time around, really there's only one Democrat really that was really qualified, and that was Rubin. And unfortunately, I think he's going to lose the runoff on the Democrat side.
To
Michelle.
Right.
To Michelle. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing about Michelle. I'm not a Democrat, okay? I do coin myself a new term, though, okay? I'm a progressive conservative. So it's sort of an oxymoron,
What the hell does
I
that
am
mean?
a progressive conservative. So when I met Michelle, we talked about this. We talked about her platform just stinks. It's just terrible, right? And we just briefly talked, and there's ways of her making that platform sound better, but yeah, I consider myself a Republican first and foremost, but there's there are ways of getting things done where hard right Republicans and hard left Democrats are missing the boat. And so in the spectrum of politics, you kind of have the middle, and then you got right and left. Well, the right and the left get so far, it actually goes in a curve, and the left and the extreme right and the extreme left are actually closer to each other than the middle. And so being a progressive conservative, what that means to me is that you actually look to conserve your moral positions, and you want to be that conservative to actually figure out how to keep policies in place and to make the left and the right, but not only the left, the center, the real American people out there happy, or let's say in a better position with policies. And so, of course, I'm always going to lean right. I'm always going to be that a Republican. But there was somebody, I heard this somewhere. I was listening to a Ben Shapiro interview one time, and the guy that was interviewing Ben Shapiro, he was asking Ben, "Hey, you know what? Why do the Republicans? Why don't they have any ideas? Progressives always have all the ideas." And I thought about that, that question to Ben. I said, you know what? That's a really good question. We as Republicans need to stand up and start making ideas and showing how we can keep our conservative ways. It's almost an oxymoron to say that we're going to be conservatives and think outside the box, but that's how we have to be now. So
you're talking about, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're talking about that interview that Ben had with the with the British
Yes.
interview
Yes.
where Ben Shapiro stormed out of
Yeah,
there.
that was an awesome one. I mean, look, the guy was totally going after Ben, and Ben was at the end. He was just wasn't having it, right? But those kind of questions, though, they really have to be asked to Republicans, and Republicans should have new ideas, and we should start thinking about how are we going to keep our conservative values in this time of change. The only thing that's constant is change. So we have to learn how to change to keep our conservative values. That's what a progressive conservative is. So it's not only talking about talking points, faith, family, freedom. No. Okay, we all got that. That's elementary in my school. We have to also start talking about, well, what are those conservative values and how do we keep them in this ever-changing world that we have, and especially with the Congress that doesn't do anything. So those are the things that I think about. And honestly, going back to Monica, those are the things that I would preach to her. In the first campaign, I would honestly, give her ideas and things to talk about. And now she's just a parrot, really, for the establishment. I know every Friday she gets training from the guys in Washington, D.C. They literally tell her what to say.
There's a term for that I use with people often. It's called Fox News brain. Is that I can tell exactly what your positions are going to be on every issue based on what's being discussed on Fox News. And to me, that's not somebody who has any respect for their own thinking. But I mean, interesting. I don't mean again to get into another debate, but I voted for Trump in 2016 too, and I voted Republican my entire life, man. But the first time I voted was right out of high school, and I voted for Bush versus Kerry the second time in 2004. That's the first time I could vote. And since then, I had voted for McCain, I voted for Romney, and then in 2016, I voted for Trump. 2020 was the first time that I didn't vote, period. And so I have been a Republican my entire life, right? And they asked somebody a very important question. I'm trying to remember who the conversation was involving, but they asked him, so you don't seem like you're a part of the Republican Party these days, right? And they asked him, are you still conservative? And the response was something that really resonated with me, because he said, I'm conservative. I'm not a conservative. The distinction being that there's a set of guidelines to being a conservative. And the distinction that he was trying to make was, what are the solutions that conservatives have for modern problems? Right. If everything is going to involve a tax cut for the rich, and everything is going to involve the same old playbook, Reaganomics, then what is our solution for inflation? What is our solution for the debt? What is our solution for every single problem that's coming on? And with Donald Trump is the first thing I really resonated with his message on economics when he was running. He really didn't run as a Republican. He was talking very progressive. He was talking about expanding Medicare. He was talking about expanding Medicaid. He was there's even a quote about him after a mass shooting that he even went as far as saying we should ban ARs.
Yeah.
and he was for red flags. So I mean, so
Yeah.
this guy, what he has a very good, I guess, first instinct to issues,
Yeah. Hmm.
but then he puts the same swamp around him that ends up convincing him to do what Republicans have been doing for the last 30, 40 years since Reagan. The first thing he did, a lot of people don't know this, but Trump's only legislative victory was tax cuts for the rich. And a lot of people don't know that in that same piece of legislation, there was incentives for outsourcing manufacturing. Now, a lot of people don't know that. And you ask yourself why? Why was that in that piece of legislation, given that he ran on bringing back manufacturing? There was a lot of things, and that was one thing that to me was a red flag. And then these payday lenders, I don't know if you heard about this one,
Oh
but
yeah.
they funded a lot of his campaign.
Yep.
And then y'all know what he did with the payday lenders, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of regulations that were stopping the payday lenders from preying on people, and he completely took those out, not looking out for the people at all. And so there was just a lot of things that Trump did that were let me know that this guy didn't really care about his message, and that he was a very, very, he didn't have a compass politically. He didn't have a moral compass. You even agreed with that one. And he was going to do what was best for Trump. Um, and so you call yourself a progressive conservative. That's interesting because
Yeah.
I've never heard that term.
Yeah.
before.
I'm coining that right now on your show. Okay.
All right. You gonna trademark it?
I'm gonna have to trademark it because I'm gonna be the first and foremost one. Because I've got a lot of ideas too. You know, a lot of people have asked me, "You think about ever running?" But I'm, I got too much going on. But yeah, there's a lot of ideas that I've thrown out there, and I've talked to some of my political friends about some of the ideas, and yeah, I don't mind sharing some of my ideas even with certain candidates. So.
What's also interesting, and Myra, you haven't talked in a minute, but I'll let you go next. But after
Sorry about that, Myra.
after I say something very important, before Mayra Flores ran for Congress, she had sent me a message asking me if I had any political advice for her, and the only advice that I really had for her was to refrain from being a standard Republican. I pointed her to what happened in Florida. Florida overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, but they also overwhelmingly voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. There is a huge crossover now between the economic left and the conservative right, which may be what you may be talking about when you call yourself a progressive conservative.
Yeah.
Conservative on social issues, a little more to the economic left on economic issues.
Well,
Supporting public unions was another one that I told her would be good to separate herself from the field. Things that aren't necessarily even anti-conservative, because how is it not conservative for workers to unite on their own and negotiate with their employers?
No, I agree with that. There's certain instances that unions are helpful in certain industries and certain things like fledgling type industries are always the unions are good to start out, to base employment rates on on the market. So I think that you've actually you've got great insight into where I'm going with this progressive conservative. So the way I look at this is the $15 minimum wage. It can be done. I know Republicans don't want to hear that, but it can be done. There's ways of doing it. You have to get creative, and it still can help small businesses, but you have to structure it to where it can. And I've got ideas and ways of doing that. And I've said this to Mayra here. We've talked about this before. There's ways of getting things done. When it comes to business and economics, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. So what that means is that I have to get creative with my money. I have to figure out how can I pay all these bills and make more money with the money that I have. So you have to be thinking outside the box. You have to be progressive in that sense. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to think like that. You got to just think outside the box. So why not try to make the left and the right come together for the greater good of society? Look, I was talking tonight with a good friend of mine. We were having dinner, and he was saying, "Man, when I started, I was getting paid $4.25, $4.75 minimum wage, but gas was 78 cents, a dollar. It was less than $1. So if you look at it like that, what do we have now? The ratios are all out of whack. You can buy enough gas to get around with. If the gas is less than $1, if you're making $4.75 an hour at minimum wage, you're still a kid making enough money to pay for your gas. But now you're making $7 an hour and you're paying $5 a gallon. That just does not make sense anymore. And so to fight inflation, you have to be able to make things affordable. And so those are problems that we can overcome if you want to be progressive enough.
Well, I think, well, you know what? I got something to say about that, but I want to let Mayra take a...
It's all right. I'm listening.
You have a, well, you know what? Joe Guerrero has another question here. She says Michelle has a wonderful personality. She's talking about the Democrat candidate. She's approachable, but very unrealistic in what she says she wants and what she wants to accomplish. What is your stance on that?
Well, like me, I honestly think that we are at some point beyond party lines. We need to look for the candidate or elect the person that's going to do more for community, for our country. But when it comes to Michelle Vallejo, I had the pleasure of meeting her. I attended a forum that one of the organizations that I'm a part of put together, and I actually suggested her as one of the speakers. Because I believe that even though we don't agree, everybody deserves to be heard. Freedom of speech. So I did go up to her and I greeted her and I complimented her. She is very approachable. She's very charismatic, but I would never vote for her. She has socialist views. She's too far to the left.
Everybody's a socialist to you, Mayra.
Not you.
If you don't love Trump, you're a socialist.
No. No, I'm on the DeSantis train right now. But huh?
You that's dollar store Trump.
I'm DeSantis. I'm DeSantis 2024. But no, I think that she does have a wonderful personality and she's very impressive, very young, but
sometimes in the political world, that's really all it takes. You said something, Johnny, that caught my attention, that Monica would never get in the same room as Michelle.
No, she won't. The tables have turned with her now. She used to be the hunter. Now she's the hunted. And so there's no reason for her to step in a room with Michelle, especially when Michelle's going to outshine her. As far as personality wise, okay, Michelle is super likable. I mean, why do you think she won over all the establishment Democrats in Hidalgo County? They all love her now.
Well, she's kind of leaning over
the
to
belle of the ball now, okay?
I mean, you look at the rooms where she's having events and you see people from establishment around her. So I wouldn't go that far.
What are her positions? Because I'm not really familiar with her campaign.
Well,
John, you know her
no, she's typical.
I want to ask Mayra this because Mayra called her a socialist, so Mayra has to have some insight.
Well, the socialist is because she wants Medicare for all. She, she wants the $15 minimum wage.
That's not
You know,
socialism.
yeah, I mean, it leans socialist. It does in the Republican eyes. I think most people are, when they start talking like that, like free this, free healthcare, free college, free everything. It it's just not doable when you say free. Somebody's paying. Okay, whenever people start saying free this, free that, you're automatically going to turn most conservatives off and say, conservative will tell you right off the bat, nothing's free. So
Unless you're
you
talking,
can't put that in your platform.
unless you're talking about wars, and conservatives love those fucking things.
No,
Unless you're talking about,
Those aren't free
unless
either.
you're
We're
talking
paying
about
for those.
unless you're talking about the $7 trillion that we spent in Afghanistan and Iraq that every conservative voted for without a peep, then
there's a difference now between Republican and conservatives. I'm a conservative, and I'm not for spending in wars that we're not ever going to win. We just sent a whole bunch of money to Ukraine, because they hold all these secrets for all these elites, we're sending them money. And that had a lot to do with the Democrats, not only the Republicans. I'm against funding wars. I mean, we've lost so many people, we lost so many soldiers, and it's just making them money. They're in it for the money. It's a money maker for them.
You see, but so you stand like that. That's not really a Republican position because most people don't agree with that.
I'm a conservative.
But when we're talking about elected officials, people in positions of power, this is the one bipartisan issue that both Democrats and Republicans have been able to agree on for the last 20, 30 years, is that there is no limit to how much we spend on foreign endeavors in Iraq, in Libya, in Afghanistan. I mean, we've spent trillions and trillions of dollars. And the arguments about socialism, that nothing is free, I find it just funny and hypocritical how these arguments only come up when it comes to helping each other and to helping Americans. What happened to America first? And these arguments never come up when it talks about fucking trillions of dollars that go into Afghanistan, that go into Iraq.
I think I got an answer for you on that. Okay. And this is just my opinion, right? Look, the Republicans and Democrats, they agree on wars because they have two different viewpoints. On the Republican side, they're talking about stimulating the economy with the war machine. They're going to start building more missiles, more tanks, blah, blah, blah. On the other side of the aisle, the Democrats like it because they feel altruistic. Like, oh, we're going to help out Ukrainians, send all this money over there, and let's help them fight that war. So there's two different viewpoints. They still are getting to the same goal, but they're getting there for different reasons. And so I'm with Mayra on this. I am a conservative. I don't believe in funding wars. I'm just going to tell a quick story. I work in the maritime industry. One of the guys that I worked with, I worked on a ship that had Ukrainians, Russians, and Bulgarians. Okay, the Bulgarian was actually the one in charge. Then it was the Russian, and then the Ukrainian. So the Bulgarian and I were standing outside one day, and he goes, "Can you believe this war that's going on?" And the Russian and the Ukrainian, they liked each other. They were like best friends. But the Bulgarian was telling me, hey, listen, this is all a show. When I go over there, all they're doing is selling old missiles to countries. So they're selling all the old stuff off. Basically, they're starting this war to sell the old missiles. You can read about it every day in the paper that we're selling missiles to some country. And then what the United States is doing is they're funding their own war machine by buying new missiles and new technology. So it's a cycle. And really, these wars are to just turn over the old war machine that we had that we can sell to other countries. And so, we left all that stuff in Afghanistan. That's another, I guess they didn't have anybody that wanted to buy all that old crap. So they just left it there. But there's a lot of missiles going around the world right now, and you can read about it every day.
And just as a point of clarification, I'm with Mayra on this too. I'm against war.
Yeah, definitely.
I've been involved long enough to know that this is a fairly new position that's been popping up, and it's with the benefit of hindsight. that the last two wars that we've been in have been complete fucking disasters.
Right.
This people with this position could have been useful 20 years ago. People with this position could have been useful, haven't been involved before we went into Iraq and before we went into Afghanistan.
Mhm.
But like I said, I've been involved long enough to know and to remember Bill O'Reilly coming on at 8 o'clock, calling anybody who was against the Iraq War a treasonous and a traitor and a terrorist sympathizer. Like again, we have the benefit of hindsight now, and it's easy to be against wars, uh, knowing the disasters that they've wrought on our economy and to our stance around the
The
world.
lives, the
Um,
people, our soldiers.
but I guess hopefully we live and we learn, man. Um, but it doesn't seem like the people in power have learned a goddamn thing from from our wars. Now we're saber rattling nuclear war with Russia by supporting Ukraine, and man, this is a completely new discussion, but um, interesting nonetheless, man. Um, Myra, we're at about an hour and 10 now. Is there anything of interest that you would like to chime in? You've been awfully quiet.
I,
Sorry.
I listen. I like to listen and see perspectives, and I'll come back with a question, or now or later. But I think we've discussed a lot. The local elections, what's going to happen, what I think. As far as in November, I do believe that the Democrats they're going to be close to taking their seat back, the one that the Republicans took. I can't even say we, because it's so hard for me to call myself a Republican. And as far as the Monica race, I think that Monica is going to win. If it's Michelle that's going to run against her, Monica's going to take it, because Michelle is too far to the left, and this is the second time Monica goes around, and she has her base of supporters.
Do you agree with
So
that, Johnny?
Yeah, look, I think the assessment's pretty good that Myra's got there. I believe that the Democrats are going to come back with a vengeance in District 34, especially since it's been redistricted for a Democrat to win. They got a legit contender in Vicente Gonzalez. He's been around the block enough times to know how to keep his seat. In District 15, I think that Monica is the favorite. I think that she probably will win. It's hers to lose. I think that Michelle is a lot better candidate than Mayra gives her credit for. I think that if you look at the numbers, strictly the numbers, she still has the numbers to win. And so it's going to be a really interesting race. And the Democrats have to come out. They got to come out and support, just like the Republicans did. If they want to make it a race, if they don't want to make it a race, then they can stay away like they did in the special election. The one district that we didn't talk about was District 28 with Cassie and Cuellar. I really believe that Cuellar is the best Democrat that we've ever seen. And so it's really going to be sad to see him go. But I think Cassie has a chance, especially if the Republicans continue to fund the three candidates that are in the RGB.
well, Cassie has a chance, but we saw the numbers of the Democrats coming out to vote, and they outvoted the Republicans in the primary.
Who would she be running against? Sandra Whitten?
No, she already won against Sandra Whitten. The runoff was between Cassie and Sandra, and she beat Sandra. So now it's Cassie against Henry Cuellar.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
was confused. Yeah.
And so yeah, so I mean they're gonna have the funding. I mean, they're because of Myra's win. So Abbott, Cassie, Monica, they're gonna get a lot of funding now because of that.
Yeah. I just
How
want
do
to say
y'all
one more
feel
thing
about?
about Mayra. I do want to
Okay.
say one more thing about Mayra. I am so happy that she's the first Hispanic Republican woman from Texas, and not Monica.
uh, uh, I'm happy she is too. Like I said, she's a
Yeah,
dear friend of mine, and she's a very very good person. Despite
she really deserves it. She worked
yeah,
hard.
and she worked hard for despite our sharp disagreements on things. Last thing I want to get y'all's opinion on, because I know it's getting late, and um Well, for me, the night is young, but you know, um, these policies that Michelle represents, when polled, when poll after poll comes out on things like Medicare for all, I mean, the numbers on these things are sometimes up to 70% uh, of majority support for the policies that Bernie Sanders supports. Um, why would that be a turnoff? Do you think? If articulated well, Michelle comes out. Listen, these are the policies that I want to support and to give to you all. Medicare for all, or the expansion of Medicare to include dental, vision, negotiation of pharmaceutical prices, all of
Well,
these things. And Monica comes out and says, listen, her message, tax cuts for the rich, strong boy, whatever it is. Why can't Michelle win that?
well,
Well,
Myra, what do you think?
to me, it doesn't. Everything for all comes with a price. It's gonna trickle down. Yes, the wealthy, the people with the businesses, you think they're able to pay it and things like that, but the cost is going to trickle down. What happened with Obamacare and the insurance world, I'm in the insurance world, it made insurance so expensive. I used to pay insurance on my son by himself. I was no longer able to buy insurance on himself. I had to get on chips. I had to go onto that for him when I used to be able to go into the marketplace and purchase a better plan for him. So everything that says for all or free, it is not free. It comes with a price. And we are the ones that are going to suffer with it because the prices are going to be, they're going to be high. It's not going to have the same coverage. You're not going to be able to choose the doctors like they said. Everything is not, you're not going to get the same free marketplace that you used to have. So it comes with a price, and it's not good for the consumer.
But we also can't pretend like everybody loves their private insurance companies. We,
Yeah.
we, we,
Well,
we also
Not
can't pretend
anymore.
like the American people have this love affair with with insurance companies, because the argument that somebody like Bernie Sanders would make is, yes, your taxes are going to go up because, like you said, nothing is free, but you're already paying $12,000 on average a year for your insurance coverage, not including copay, not including etc. So what they're saying is, if your taxes go up 5,000 a year, but you're saving from paying 12,000 a year to your private insurance company, at the end of the day, you're still saving money.
okay, I agree with you. Um, so you're sounding a lot like a progressive conservative. That's why I like you so much. Okay. So the
I'm
idea
for I'm,
here,
I'm for America first, man.
okay, and I am too, 100%. Okay, so you're coming to a point where you're trying to marry different ideas together and to make it make sense. So
Right.
to answer your question about Michelle, those policies can be winning policies. It's the way she's going to talk about them and
Absolutely.
present them, just like how you're talking. It's an education of the American people as far as how it could be done, right? That's what Monica's lacking, the how.
Right.
If she's able to articulate how, then it's a winning formula of a platform. But there's got to be ways to make it sound a how that conservatives will go for. You got to remember one thing. Yeah, sure, everybody wants Medicare for all, right? But conservatives are not going to vote for that
Vote for
if
it.
it means you're not building the wall or you're not
Right.
doing something else that's more important for conservatives. So you got to tie it together. So what I mean by that is, you're right with inflation, right? How do we deal with inflation? You tie that message. That is exactly what Bernie Sanders says. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be bundled in with Bernie Sanders, but it is true. If you're paying $12,000 a year in health insurance, but you can get it for $5,000 of taxes, then why not? So there's going to be some rebuttals to that, and I have answers to that too as
Right.
well. But you can go on. This can snowball into a larger conversation as far as how everything could get done. Right? That's a big how.
Right. And an
And
interesting
so
point. Interesting point that you
it
say
can be done though.
because there was a lot of crossover between Bernie supporters and Trump supporters.
Absolutely.
There was a
That's
lot
what
of
I'm
crossover.
telling you is that
Right.
that curve is like this, and the hard right and the hard left are closer together than they are to the center. But we need to get the center involved. We need to have these ideas on both sides in case everybody to have a good America
Okay.
First society.
Johnny for 2024.
Well, I mean, according to you, Myra, there's two communists on this show that are talking to each other.
We're both socialists. All of a sudden, we turn socialists here.
There was one question that I wanted to ask you earlier, Johnny, that I just thought about now, and I know we're dragging on now. I was kind of shocked that the 2020 election was as close as it was between Gonzalez and Monica.
Right.
What I chalked it down to was the Trump effect. Was that Trump had energized everybody to come out, and she benefited greatly from that. She's not going to have that now.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you. But let's back up to the 2020 election and analyze that just real quick. Yes, the Trump effect. Okay. But if you look at the numbers of District 28 and 34, the two districts side by side, the number of the percentage points that she went up compared to the percentage points of those other candidates far outpaced the other candidates. So yes, the Trump effect, but yes, it was the Monica effect. So you got to give credit where credit's due. She did well in that campaign. She had me helping. She had a few other people helping. She did not get help from the National Party. She did not get help really from the GOP down here, very little. And so it was all hard work, and she did a very, very good job. I will never say that she didn't do a good job. She pandered. She did what she needed to do.
Right.
All the political things that you need to do, to win votes. But it was, if you go look at the other candidates in the neighboring districts, she far outpaced them by a lot.
Well, and I want to add something to that. She doesn't have the Trump effect, but she has a Biden effect. The way Biden is doing is his administration is getting a lot of people to come out and vote for these Republican candidates.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I wanted to ask you something, Mayra. I can't let you go empty-handed. If I decided to run in 2024 and I branded myself as an American patriot, I carried the flag everywhere I went, strong borders, faith and family, and like I said, strong freedom and strong borders, but I supported Medicare for all. I supported raising the minimum wage. I supported private unions. I supported things that, in my opinion, and I believe the data would support me on this, help the lower class or the middle class people. Would you vote for me?
I would need to see more of your platform, especially on the pro-life.
Well, very charming, very well spoken. Pro-life. I mean, okay, pro-life. You're pro-life.
I'm very pro-life.
But you don't believe life begins at fertilization, right?
Life begins when there's a baby forming, when there's life at its
So at what stage is that? Because that's important.
When it starts forming, when the sperm meets the egg and the baby starts to create.
So about how long after sex?
I don't know. I don't know that. I honestly say I don't know. It begins when.
Well, the reason why I'm asking you is because there's political ramifications to that question, right? I asked this question, Johnny, because when I asked Monica that question, that when she's pro life and she says she believed life begins at conception, I asked her, well, what does that
Mhm.
mean? And she told me the same thing that Myra just said. Or that's a very popular thing to say
Right.
among the evangelical right.
Oh
But
yeah, for sure.
so then I ask her, so then that has to mean that you're would want to do away with the day after pill, right? And then she started stuttering like, well, yeah, well, because you got to know what your position means, and you got to have the guts to say it. On principle, if you believe life begins at conception, then you would do away with most contraception.
When there's a heartbeat, when there's a life, there's a heartbeat.
But that's different than what you just said right now.
Well, there's a heartbeat when there's a when a man has sex with a woman and the baby starts to form, and there starts to create a heartbeat, then there starts to be, the beginning of life. It starts because there is a heartbeat, there is life there. That's what detects life. If there's detection of life, then that is a life.
Right, but science says that's at about 5 or 6 weeks.
I for one believe that I don't believe in abortion at any stage.
There's a lot of clarifying that has to be done on
Mhm.
on that position though, because I mean it is a virtue signal on the right to say that you're pro life and not have to explain what that means, right?
Mhm.
It's like I told you, there's a very unpopular it's unpopular on the left to be for full term abortion, right? But it's just as unpopular on the right to to think that life begins at conception, and that the policies that follow, like I said, the banning of most contraception,
Mhm.
that shit's not popular either. When polled, the American people agree with Roe versus Wade as it stands now. Dun, dun,
Yeah,
No, I'm
but
sorry,
look,
I don't know something else.
I
Can I
think that
just
we're
pause?
splitting hairs here, Raleigh. I think it's splitting hairs. I think that again, whenever somebody says they're pro-life, it is what it means to them as far as they know how far or when that life begins. And the correct answer to that is at conception, for the evangelicals and for
mhm,
the hard right. That is the right answer.
mhm.
So conception is going to be the right answer to this question. And look, if that means banning the day after pill and those kind of things, then um, you know you don't really, at that point you really don't even know if you're pregnant. So it's also the knowledge, right? If you know that you're pregnant, then you go in for an abortion, then you know you're stopping a life. The day after pill, those are all splitting hairs. You see where I'm coming at? So
But
banning
it's
the day
not
after
splitting
pill is
hairs.
not it's
But
not it's not
it's
really a popular thing to say either.
right, but it's not splitting hairs because listen, beliefs have consequences, right? What people believe, I mean, it has to mean something because right now in Louisiana, if you believe abortion is murder, then why isn't it okay to jail women who have abortions? Why isn't it morally right to jail doctors who perform abortions? Like, there's consequences to these beliefs. In Louisiana, they just proposed a bill to jail women who have abortions. But that is consistent. It's a consistent belief, although a very minority belief in this country is viewed as an extreme belief for a reason. But it is consistent if you believe abortion is murder. But I just wish people would say it. If it's what you believe, then just have the guts to say it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people that do say it. I mean, we hang out with a lot of, you know, um, hard right people, and people do say that abortion is murder. I mean, look,
Yeah.
Yes. I
it's
do
a
believe
hard
that.
rhetoric. It's hard rhetoric, but that's what evangelicals are saying. That's what people on the hard right are saying. And so, look, let's be honest. Texas has made a law itself where it's 6 weeks and you can't do it anymore, right?
Hmm.
So, look, that's basically banning abortion. So nobody is complaining about that. I mean, yeah, for a minute, split second, So obviously, it's not that big of an issue for the hard left. They haven't made a big deal about it here in Texas. Nobody seems to. It hasn't been a real. Nobody's rioting. No, nobody. No Antifa's in the streets about it. So,
but as far as I know, it is being challenged in courts, though.
Oh yeah, there's a Roe versus Wade. The decision should be tomorrow, I believe.
No, but I'm saying this. So if the Roe versus Wade decision is overturned, then that would do away with all of the pending legislation on everything, right? But yeah, I mean, the position I landed on was that, right? As soon as there's a heartbeat, I think
sure,
it's a good legal standard.
Yeah, it's a good. I mean, to me, that's the indicator for sure.
Yeah. But
guys, we would have to talk you to see if you have my vote and if I can block walk for you or whatever. But I need to see your platform.
I think I got you.
The charm alone is not going to work, sir.
Very, very, very wise woman, Mayra. Guys, it's been fun. We ought to do this again.
Sure thing.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot from you guys. It was lively at times, and Johnny, thank you for your insight on.
Anytime, Raleigh. You wanna pick my brain. I haven't really stepped away all that much from political things. I haven't gone to a lot of GOP and Republican things only because I don't feel welcome there anymore. But I'm still somewhat active. I am going to go to certain political events where I do feel welcome. So, right. But as far as the insight from 2016 on, yeah, I've been involved heavily in District 15 and in the RGV. So, anytime you want to talk about that, I'm down for that. And even progressive conservatism, you're already there. You're halfway there.
And Mayra, we're having a new show that we're doing every Sunday night, right?
Yes. Yeah, every Sunday night. It'll be on Rumble, it'll be on YouTube, it'll be on Patriot TV, Getter, Facebook. So it'll be in different platforms.
And so, as you guys can already tell, her and I will agree on some things and disagree on a lot of others. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be respectful, and I'm sure she's going to learn a lot, and I'm going to learn a lot.
And just know that I sit on the right side. That's it. At
the end of the day, that's all that matters. But all right, guys, thanks for coming on.
I do have to call you out on something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
You didn't bring drinks.
I didn't bring drinks tonight because I drank earlier.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was slowing down. I was slowing down, man. At the very beginning, I felt like I was kind of sluggish, but then I found my groove, and I think we did all right.
All right.
I think we did all right, but we'll do drinks next time for sure.
Okay.
You're a drinking man, Johnny?
Just a little bit.
A little too much sometimes, yeah.
My kind of guy. All right, guys. Well then we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right, we'll see you guys.